Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Silver Lyming. If you're not already following me, please do. You can find me on YouTube or any of your pod streaming stations, such as iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple. And then I also do have a website. I'd ask you to check that out, and you're free to book appointments with me through that source. That would be thesilverlyming.com. But today I have another wonderful episode to get underway with a great guest, Carol Gretsky. I'm so excited. This is so fun for me. Again, I was sharing with her just how much I love doing these stories to give people some hope and the ability to help maybe get some more perspective on their own healing and some information that can be used and be relevant to your own journey. So for those of you listening who are struggling right now with long-term or chronic Lyme, or even short-term, just know you can get better. It is possible. And that's why, again, I bring these stories. I want Carol to share her story with us so we can hear a little bit more about how she's gone on with her life. But just know that you can get better, really. And that's what these stories are here for. So Carol, if you don't mind, please do share with us a little bit more about your journey with Lyme and tick-borne illness and how you became involved in this space.
Okay, well, it all started on December 10th, 2010. No, December 2nd, 2010, sorry. It actually started with my daughter. She was the one that was the sickest.
Okay.
She woke up one and she could barely speak. It looked like she was having a stroke. She was like mumbling and stuttering and just terrible. It looked like she was having a stroke and we didn't know what was going on. And the previous year before, well, the previous several years before that, she was always like getting sore throat, strep throat, sinus infection, strep throat, sinus infection. And she would go on antibiotics, she would get better, and then she would feel better for a few weeks, and then again, strep throat and, sinus stuff. So in 2009, she had the tonsils and the adenoids out, and we thought, okay, that's going to solve the problem. She felt great that summer. She healed and she started 6th grade. And then she started to have a lot of she was always a really happy kid, very upbeat, had a lot of friends, and she started to get a lot of depression. Excuse me. I can't talk. I'm a little busy. Can I call you back? Bye. Bye. All right, bye. She started to get very depressed, very, just not herself, just very moody. And then she had gained quite a bit of weight, all of a sudden. And it was like, okay, what's going on? We had called up a holistic doctor that we have heard of in the area, because at the time we were living in Purcellville, Virginia. And unfortunately, this is ironic, when I called up, they had told me that Dr. Dave just got very sick and he's not available. We'll put you on a wait list. I said, okay, put me on the wait list. That'd be fine. That was 2009. And then in that summer of 2010, finally, I got a phone call that he was back at work and he had Lyme disease. And the first thing he did was test her with IGenic in June of 2010, and it came back negative. And I put so much faith in that test. That's why I don't really care about tests. I put so much faith. Oh, she doesn't have Lyme. He put a caveat in there. He goes, we'll see. We'll watch for symptoms though. But during the summer, she did okay. I didn't think, and then the fall came and slowly started to decline again. She was getting a lot of, she got diagnosed then with asthma. That came out of the clear blue sky. After they took the tonsils and the adenoids out, then it went to her lungs. And, but then on December 2nd, as soon as she had that episode it looked like she was having a stroke, we took her to a local doctor right away. And he said, oh, she's an only child. She's doing this for attention. I called up the pediatrician, took her there. The pediatrician looked at her and said, this is not Katerina, but I don't really know what's going on. She was honest. And then I called Dr. Dave, and he said, take her to the ER, just rule out any kind of brain tumor or anything or something like that, and then bring her in because I really believe she has Lyme disease. And we brought her in. He took some tests, but he started to treat right away because he knew. I mean, he actually was so sick, he couldn't even walk for a while. And he got himself better. So I always felt like I was in a good place with him. And so then we started treating. We did 6 months of antibiotics, and then we did the Cowden protocol, and she did get better. She did finally start to feel better, but she would kind of relapse all the time over the years. Like she would get better, then relapse, get better, then relapse a little bit. She didn't have like a long period of remission. So then we also tried, well, we did a lot of things. We did hyperbaric oxygen therapy. We did chelation, IV chelation. We did sauna. We did herbs. Like I said, antibiotics, herbs. And then we did, she would feel better. She would go through periods of feeling better, and then she would relapse. And we didn't really know why all the relapses. Then we tried in 2016, we decided to try, and we were also with another doctor at the time because we had moved from Virginia up to New Jersey. So we needed to have someone local. So we were working with 2 doctors, and it was working out. And then this other doctor, who her daughter had Lyme, and she went through this treatment, the same treatment that Allie Hilfiger did.
Okay.
Actually, the doctor in New Jersey was trained by the doctor that Allie Hilfiger went. And when we first started the German protocol, we had to go into Manhattan, and we met Dr. Mongenaro, and he, am I allowed to say the doctor's name? I don't know, because I know some people are funny about that. And he was the same doctor that treated Allie Hilfiger. And then he trained the other doctor in New Jersey. And so she did those treatments. The treatments consisted of IV colloidal silver and vitamin IVs, and then something called auto blood, where they take the blood out, cleanse it, and then put it back. And she did quite a few. And then she did ozone IVs.
Okay.
And she did get better. We started, let's see, and we started maybe the 25th, at the end of 2015 through 2016. She did herx a lot. She had a lot of bad herxes. But then in June of 2016, she really felt better. It was the first, she woke up one morning and said, I have energy. And I was like, so finally, because like my husband was also diagnosed, and I was diagnosed after she got diagnosed. But I honestly, I have to say myself, all I did was do Cowden protocol, and I felt better.
Right.
I don't have terrible herxes. It never kept me from like actually doing anything. Like my husband also was diagnosed. He probably had multiple infections because he grew up in Pennsylvania, hunting, fishing. We have a picture of him when he was a toddler sitting on a dead deer. They kind of lived off the land. His grandparents, they farmed and they hunted and they fished, and that's how they lived, But he got treated with some antibiotics and then with the herbs, but he was okay,
Good.
Like he didn't lose a lot of work or anything. And my daughter lost pretty much all her teens.
And I'm curious too, I'm sorry if maybe you mentioned it, did she have co-infections too, or
Oh, yeah, she had Bartonella and Babesia.
And do you know, did you and your husband have co-infections?
Yeah.
Or?
I had Babesia, and my
Okay.
husband has Bart and Babesia.
Okay. Because sometimes I
And
wonder, it's like that makes a difference if that's maybe she
yeah,
got.
no, we had the co-infections too. Yeah, she had the
Mhm.
co-infections. And so we finally were able that June of 2016 to go on a vacation. We went to St. Thomas. We took a friend of hers and we went down, and it was really nice. She did really well the whole summer, and she did well into the fall, but then things started happening again. And we didn't really know why, because we had done so many IVs. And then the Lyme doctor in New Jersey kept saying, well, more IVs, more IVs, more IVs, without actually really delving into it, testing, because she had hormonal problems. And she had lost all the weight. She looked really, really good for a while. So then we got into like, well, what's going on? And then I decided, I got a little frustrated because these IVs were very, very expensive.
Imagine.
I would be like $700 a week. And in a 2-year period, my daughter did 80. So it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then at the beginning, I don't have regrets about doing the German protocol. I think it really helped her, but I have regrets about doing as many IVs as we did, because I think at that point, when she kept relapsing, then again, we should have delved further. So I decided to go to this, I guess you can say he's actually has a degree in biochemistry. He's brilliant. He is, I don't know what you would call him. He's not a doctor, but he's really brilliant. He could be a doctor if he wanted to. He is a nutritionist. He calls himself a nutritionist, but he actually did the oats test and did the Dutch hormone test and did all this kind of blood work, and found out that her prolactin is very high, was over 300. And you shouldn't have that high of prolactin unless you're pregnant. She was even getting milk coming from her breast. She wasn't getting a period for a long, long time.
Huh.
And it came to find out that she had a pituitary tumor, which he said, this nutritionist said, could be suppressing her immune system. So we had to go, and then he says, you need medical intervention. So at that point, we had to see a endocrinologist. We had to get an MRI, and we had to start medication, which had terrible side effects. And then we tried a compounded version of the medication, which helped. It wasn't as bad. The side effects weren't as bad, but it still took its toll on her, you know. The medication could give you hallucinations. So it lowered the prolactin to about 60, but it never got it down be 30 and under. And so then then the only other option is surgery. So then I had to do my research, because the surgery could be hit or miss. Like, you have to go to the right person. And I did a lot of research, and I found a doctor in New York City at New York Presbyterian, and he was an expert in pituitary tumor. He was at the forefront of the surgery, because years ago they could only do a craniotomy. But somewhere, I don't know exactly what year, they discovered that they could go up the nose if the tumor wasn't, if it was small enough to be taken out that way, go up the nose and access the brain that way and take it out.
Wow.
And then I started going on all the Facebook pituitary groups, and I heard like nightmare stories of it. You know, it got nicked or got damaged in the surgery. But we went to that doctor, and he was very self-confident, that neurosurgeon. And I guess that's what you want in a neurosurgeon, maybe to the point of being a little cocky, but maybe that was good. He was at the forefront of that surgery. He was the protege of the doctor that created that surgery.
Okay.
And I don't remember the doctor's name that created the surgery. So then we decided, go for the surgery. She had the surgery September 2019, and he did an amazing job. I mean, she had no side effects, none of the things that could have happened, a cerebral leak or diabetes insipidus or anything happened. It seemed to right her hormones, and she's had a period ever since.
Right.
And it really made her feel better. She lost a lot of weight because the tumor made her gain weight, like 40 pounds, and she was feeling so good and looking so good, and everything was going well. And then the pandemic hit. But so she's been through a lot, but that's kind of essentially our story. It was the Lyme and the co-infections, but then also not realizing that there could be something else. You know, I was always blaming everything on Lyme, which you do because it could give you crazy symptoms. But then there was another thing that even that Lyme doctor in New Jersey totally missed.
Yeah.
Didn't think of running just a simple hormone panel.
Yeah.
And you would have noticed that her prolactin was really high. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell.
Yeah. Oh, I'm really glad that you were able to get the ultimate root. I mean, it sounds like there was a couple different things that needed to be extracted or eradicated. And I'm glad that so she's doing better now. Cause that's like, how old is she now?
She's 25 and she was diagnosed when she was 12. She was in and out of high school, in and out of middle school, didn't get a chance to go away to college. So she's been doing online. She's doing much better now. Now, I would say the thing that seems to really have her a little bit upset is the fact that she was delayed a lot of the pandemic. She was ready to take on the world, and then pandemic hit, and then ramifications from that. It's created some PTSD in her, but physically she's doing really, really well. Hasn't really been getting sick very often. I mean,
Right.
you know, we do a lot of things. We still take herbs on and off,
I was
and
going to ask next.
we do, sometimes we'll do like vitamin IVs, which help us, give us some energy and just really helps. We do a lot of holistic stuff. She'll do castor oil packs for detox. We have a sauna. Just try to eat healthy, you know, which we've always done even before Lyme, because we were gluten-free years before Lyme and eating very healthy. Because my mom was diagnosed with celiac back, in the early 90s.
Okay.
And so my daughter and I are celiac too. So we really watch our diet, but that's about all we do now. You know, I mean, if I feel like I'm getting run down and I feel, I have a little migratory pain, I'll take some herbs and then I'm fine. I keep going, like the energies are funny.
That's great. And I'm glad, like I'm listening to you, you're like, oh, that's all we do. And it's like, man, if half the people in our population did, that's all we do, we'd be so much healthier. It's great. It's good that you've got a good foundation in place, that you continue to lead a proactively healthy lifestyle to manage yourselves and to make sure that you stay in check.
Yeah.
You know, I think sometimes it can be a little bit hard to explain to people, but I feel like I completely changed how I live as a human. And it's a lot of stuff that people are kind of like, I could never eat like that, or I could never, or whatever. And it's like, you don't know until you try it. And secondly, like now that I'm here, I wouldn't want to revert.
Yes, exactly.
So good.
When my daughter eats something too sweet, it's like,
yeah,
you know, like she can't handle it. She's better off having less, you know, she doesn't eat a lot of sweets. She doesn't, you know, she eats very, very, very little, but sometimes things taste almost too sweet.
Correct.
Because your taste buds change.
That's right. That's right. Sometimes eating certain foods, I'm like, the thought of just eating it is like, no. But, and I'm kind of curious too, I can imagine having a little bit of PTSD in a sense. I have some myself, because when you're sick for that long and then things just are kind of weird and wonky, and then the COVID situation and everything else.
Yes, the whole COVID situation really, really affected her. I mean, she actually took advantage of the time where she was able to do more Zoom classes, like
Good.
more of her dance on Zoom, her acting on Zoom, her singing, doing that. But then you get to the point where everything is Zoom, and now it's like, oh, I want to just get into New York City. It was a little bit hard because, yeah, the Zoom now gets old. So now she's kind of getting out there again, which is helping the
Good.
PTSD. She does a lot of things. She dances on point. She dances
Wow.
on point. She sings, she acts. She's even writing now scripts, and she's going to
Wow.
get paid for that. She goes to Southern New Hampshire, and she's getting a bachelor's in American history just because she loves it. And
Yeah.
she she does archery and horseback riding. She does archery every
Wow.
week. She just did it yesterday. And
That's fabulous. She's busy. Like that's a very active, healthy lifestyle.
she
It sounds
is
like.
very, very busy. And she has, I would say right now, the PTSD, she has her good days and bad days with it. And she has periods where she's really okay with it. It's been very hard finding the right therapist. That's been very difficult. We've been
Where I was
through
going with
so
that.
many.
Mhm.
And then the right, like she reacts better to energy medicine, like energy, like Reiki,
Yep.
very calming for her. She loves that.
Yep.
She reacts better to energy. The talk therapy doesn't really help the PTSD. The hyperbaric oxygen therapy does.
Huh.
So we do that. That actually helps. They've done studies on that.
Yeah, good.
And she's doing brain core right now, which is neurofeedback for the PTSD.
Great.
And that's been helping.
Great.
So, I can't say that every day, like there are some days she might have a bad day, but then she gets back up and gets right back on the saddle again. And she's doing, she's doing okay.
Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear this because that's, again, I was wondering if she is seeing a therapist to try to help her with some of that because that's half of her life that was
Well,
consumed
exactly.
with
And that's
being
what
sick and
that's what she's grappling with. She lost all her teen years.
yeah,
And now with the pandemic and all the other things, she feels like she's lost half her 20s,
yeah,
that that
yeah.
she lost half her 20s. So, but I think her future is very bright, and I'm glad that we were able to treat in the way we did. I don't have regrets really. Just that I do have to say that it is very expensive and a lot of people can't afford it. And that's really a big, big issue for me.
Yes, me as well. And
If you can't afford it, I mean, what do you do as a parent?
what do you do as anybody? I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, I kept finding a different job so that I could afford treatment. And, I joke like, oh, I'm going to go stand out on the corner soon, but like, how do you afford it? And I feel bad for people who are misled in that thinking that they don't have it. And so then they're just left grasping at straws, trying to figure out what
Yes.
exactly they do have. And B, once you get it, then you have the privilege of trying to figure out how you're going to pay for it. It's not a privilege. It's horrible. Like that's something that's really wrong. I was talking to someone else and she was saying, maybe she got denied for a grant for help to cover costs. And she was a little bit upset because she felt like they were more slated for families and not for single people.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, where the real problem is that insurance doesn't cover it in the first place. You shouldn't have to be left here to piecemeal together treatment or beg and cobble along trying to get some funds to take care of yourself. Like it's just not how it should be. It should be insurance. It should be different legislation in place that covers people more adequately so they're not left to fend on their own or spend the retirement fund or anything else that they've got, mortgage their house. I've seen all kinds of stuff happen to people,
Yes.
and that's a big problem. And so, if you're listening to this, you can reach out to your local elected officials and let them know that things need to change. I know I'm talking from the state of Pennsylvania, and I'm not sure, are you in New Jersey now or?
Well, I am Well, yeah, I'm going back to New Jersey. I moved to New York temporarily to be closer to an elderly parent, and I'm going to be moving back in the next month and a
Okay.
half.
Okay. So, but in that state, obviously, then stuff isn't covered either. Like I know
No, New York
some
is even
states,
worse. New York is,
yeah. Okay. And that's what some states I think actually do cover. And I should make a better effort to find out which states actually do cover treatment. But most states don't. And so, again, as I'm sitting here saying this, it's like probably your state doesn't. And again, just talk to the elected officials about this. Let them know that it matters. Until don't wait till it happens to you to find out what it's like. It sucks. You can hear what Carol says about how much they spent on IV treatments. That's just IV treatments. That's not probably the doctor's appointment. That's not all the extra supplements. That's not all the extra energy treatment and all the other stuff. I know how much I was spending, and it was thousands of dollars a month. And it's definitely not necessarily sustainable on a long-term scale for anybody. But unfortunately, as you can hear with your daughter's story, is like that was over a stretch of how many years? So, you sometimes have to make it be sustainable on a long-term scale. If it was quick in like 3 months, okay, but still that's not fun to spend that money. But like years and years of having to spend that much to support yourself to get better is crazy. And I think a lot of times about people who can't afford it, it's like, if you want a designer disease or whatever, like this is the one to get because it's so expensive to treat. Like it's crazy.
Yeah. The first year she was diagnosed in 2010, 2011, we spent $30,000. But then, each year we've spent money, and you said the supplements alone, the hyperbarics, all the doctor's fees, everything that we've spent over the years. I was calculating it for a while, then I kind of just said, I can't do this anymore. I just,
yeah.
like, whatever.
It's almost impossible to keep track of everything. Like, that you spend money on, and it sort of becomes your lifestyle then again too. And it's like, I think about that. I'm like, well, I wonder what I'd be spending my money on if I didn't get into health or like caring about my body so much. Or, I'm like, ooh, ancient minerals, magnesium salts. Like I can go soak myself in the tub, or like, I get excited about buying stuff like that. I'm sure I would have something else that I would be spending my money on, but that's more pleasurable by now. It's not even that I'm looking at it as fixing myself. It's like, I want to do this for myself. So how do you really add up those costs? Well, I'm very glad that you guys were all able to get better, and thankful for your sharing your story too, because you're a great example. Here's a family, 3 people, 3 different experiences, and that's how Lyme works. It's like nobody's case is ever the same. No 2 people have the same exact set of symptoms. And that's another reason why it's such a hard disease to deal with, because doctors never see the same presentation probably twice. In some instances, there's going to be commonalities, but it can shapeshift so much. I think of it as the ultimate shapeshifter for so many reasons, but partially because of the symptom thing. So that's awesome. And then can you think of any kind of words of encouragement or advice for people who are going through this that you think people should know? Or if you were like newly diagnosed, what's one thing that you wish that you knew at the beginning that you know now at the end?
Well, one thing, I guess, it's a tough question. I would say for anyone newly diagnosed, just to try to do your research and find the right doctor, find the right match. It's kind of hard because I think I fell into a good doctor in Virginia, and we still see him to this day. We don't see the other doctor in New Jersey. That's why I'm not mentioning the name, because I got a little frustrated with the fact that they didn't test her hormones when they should have. Because all they kept saying was, oh, 3 more drips, 3 more. Because that was a moneymaker, a big moneymaker for them. After a while, the doctors started out being really, really, really good and a very good diagnostician. But then as time went on, I think the money went to their heads a little bit. And the only thing that I can say is, like, although this experience has been really hard, and family doesn't totally understand it. My family understands it more than his family, but people don't fully understand unless they walk a mile in your shoes. And the thing that I could say that was good, that like when COVID broke out, I didn't trust the CDC at all. I did not trust a lot of the things that were being said in the mainstream media because I knew better
because
from
of your
Lyme.
experience.
And that made me more, and so in a way I was grateful for that I had that knowledge. I got to do research. I'm not going to just jump and do this or do that. I have to be very careful because my daughter is also very sensitive. Like when we treated her, sometimes we had to back off the treatment and then start very, very slow, the herbs or with the antibiotic, like really slow. Like when my husband could take a full pill, she had to take a quarter.
Okay.
Or, like maybe 1 or 2 drops of some type of an herbal thing, of the Byron White or the Nutrimetics or like whatever it was. She had to, she also has a mild case of mast cell also from this.
Okay.
And she's on mast cell stabilizers.
Okay.
Which have been very helpful.
Good.
There's a medication we get from Canada that's not approved by the FDA, that we have to go through a Canadian pharmacy to get, and it's very helpful for mast cell.
Okay. And then if anybody's listening and they would want more information, are you okay if they were to contact you about that?
Yes, you can give my email address. I can give you my phone number. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
The medication, we've been on it for about 1.5 years, and we haven't had too many issues, but the FDA will confiscate a package and destroy it. It happened twice. Mm. Then the pharmacy, all you have to do is send them the notice that you got from the FDA, and then they'll just send you another set, and they won't charge you. They'll just send you another set.
That's nice.
The medication.
That's nice. Good. Well, thank you for that willingness to help people in that aspect too, because I don't necessarily deal with that, but it would be nice to have you there as a resource if they're wanting to reach out for information about that. And as a last thought, because I often like to think about this, and that there's not all badness. What's the right word that I'm thinking of for that right now? It's not all negative that comes out of illness and disease and the sickness.
Yes.
Can you say maybe what would be the best thing that you found coming through this experience?
I would say knowledge, I would say knowledge and not necessarily trusting what certain medical people say, like doing my own research first. And also to know your own body, because everybody's, like you said, everybody's body's different and responds to different treatments. So it's not like a cookie cutter. You take this and you're going to be better in 10 days. This is a whole nother animal. But I think it's taught me a lot. Also patience, to be patient.
Yes. Yes. That's probably one of the biggest things. I kind of joke. I often would say my middle name is not Patience. And unfortunately, universe has a way of teaching us things sometimes when we really need to learn them, like patience. And this process really forces you to learn patience. So that's a good one. Be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah.
Like, any of those people listening that don't have Lyme, be careful. Don't ask God necessarily for more patience, or just be careful in how you ask to have it brought to you, because this is one way I wouldn't wish on my own worst enemy.
No, I wouldn't either. Yeah. I always say that too. It's really horrible. It's just sad. And there's so many stories like my daughter's too. I have support groups, and there's so many young kids that have gone through this and lost their childhood.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really the population in a sense. I think about like homeless people and young people. just because like I had the words to say what I felt in my body, and they still didn't find what was wrong with me for 7 years, and I'm like a grown person with a grown-up vocabulary that's really able to openly express my feelings and say what I'm feeling in my body, versus a kid. Like, how do they really articulate that well enough to say what's happening in their little bodies? And I'm just hopeful that in a child it would be more noticeable or like believable that their personality changed so much, because it's maybe harder for a single adult for people to really notice the change in personality so much as a child, if that makes any sense, that they would maybe get help sooner. But nobody should have to go through that at all. No one should have to feel like they lose a decade of their life to a sickness that's not even necessarily even recognized.
I know that's sad that it's not, and we don't know, like our doctor in Virginia had said, like, we can't really know how she got it because none of us had the bullseye.
Okay.
None of us had the bullseye. And, she played, all we did was she played soccer. We didn't go into the woods, or I didn't, or she didn't. She actually hated going in the woods. She hates camping. My husband did years ago because he hunted, but he hasn't hunted in years. I didn't go in the woods. You don't have to go in the woods to get it. That's another misconception that a lot of people have. And you could be born with it. My daughter just whispered that up. She's getting ready for class, and we don't know. She could have been born with it. My husband could have had it for years and not know it.
Sure.
Because I remember early in our marriage, like as soon as we got married, he went on a hunting trip, and then he started to get very tired. Now we were only in our early 30s at the time, maybe. And he would get very tired on the weekends, slept all week. And I'm like, wait a minute, why is he sleeping? I was raring to go. I wanted to go downtown DC, go to Georgetown, do things. And he's like, I'm tired. So I think that's a red flag too.
Yes. For sure.
We don't know if my daughter was born with it or she got it on the soccer field. We have no idea. And we'll never really know totally, but as long as I feel fortunate that we did have the doctor in Virginia, because once after the hygienics, and then he said, we have to watch, just, he knew right away. And he didn't feel like he had to get a positive test in order to start treating.
That's good. Cause I haven't necessarily, I've known a couple people to use hygienics. Like that's really where I send people for testing, but I've not necessarily heard of anybody having a not accurate result from them. So that's good to know in that.
Yeah, no, they're not they're accurate, but not 100%. Hearing some good things about Vibrant Wellness.
Okay.
They're a little more accurate. They also do like GI testing. They do Lyme testing. They do brain testing, all kinds of through blood work. It's a specialized laboratory in California. Okay. It's called Vibrant Wellness. And I've heard we've used them for things. We didn't use them for Lyme testing, but we used them for other things. And brain issues, like brain focusing issues, and they have all kinds of gut tests too.
That's a huge component to this too, I feel, is the gut health.
Yes.
Getting everything situated and balanced. And my Ayurvedic doctor often will say, like, if you get your thyroid functioning right, you get your liver cleaned out, and you get your gut health, you can really overcome pretty much everything.
Yes.
Or, never even get anything in the first place. And so thyroid encompasses hormones and all of that too. Right. But
yes,
I'm glad that you've been able to at least get a good plan in place, or good direction, good guidance as you were going through this, good help from people that allowed you and your daughter and your husband to regain your health. And I'm sorry that she still maybe has some bobbles, but I think ultimately human bodies are going to do that no matter what. And so you just kind of keep going and building up the foundation or the base and strengthening the immune system and working through the challenges. And can you say, is there anything more like I like to kind of think about this aspect a lot with life and spiritual health. Did that play any kind of factor in to the healing? I know that you had said she does energy stuff, and sometimes to me that's more spiritual in and of itself. I
Yes,
don't necessarily mean like church per se. It could be any of that realm.
it played a part. Yes, it did. I struggled spiritually with, well, why did this happen to us?
Mhm.
Why is this happening?
Yes.
And she's just saying, uh-huh.
Yes.
Why did this happen to us? Why are we going through this? And it's hard when she was isolated and she was so sick, she was bedridden for a while. And then you see social media as a double-edged sword, because then she would see all her cousins enjoying life, having boyfriends and girlfriends and going out and doing the normal teenage things, going to prom, and she never got to do any of that.
Yes.
So it did. It spiritually, yeah, I mean, I find it does test your faith. Like my daughter just screamed, it tests your faith. It really
Yes.
does.
Tremendously.
And, there were times I would be very encouraged and faithful. I've had my ups and downs with it, dealing with that.
Yes. Yes. I can remember being in church a lot. Like I didn't go a lot, I should say. The seldom times that I was able to make myself go, I was just really pissed at Jesus on the cross, and to be very blunt about it. And I would just look up at it, I'd cry, and I'd be so angry, and I would have the same conversations with him I'm sure that you were having. Why me? How I feel like the most broken person. Like, this is not right. Why did you make me so broken? Like, I had a lot of those conversations, and I ultimately abandoned church because I couldn't do that to myself. Like, my mom and dad would try to get me to go. I'm like, they didn't understand. And they didn't understand I was sick. They didn't understand any of that at that time. But I get that. Like,
What you
really,
just said, it sums up my feelings and my daughter too. What we've had that conversation with Jesus all the time. Yeah, she was so mad she threw a religious statue once. She didn't mean it, but I think, sometimes the Bartonella can do that to you too. Sometimes I don't go to church all the time. Sometimes I just like to go by myself and sit and pray and not have to listen to somebody pontificating. Sometimes they
yeah,
interject their own opinion, and I just couldn't deal with that. Sometimes I have trouble spiritually because I feel like sometimes, like religion, people bicker back and forth about these nuances that really don't mean anything. Like,
yeah,
get over it. It really doesn't mean anything in the long term. And
no,
so sometimes I just like to go into a church and sit and pray on my own.
yes,
I feel like I get more comfort from that.
yes, yes. And that's more of a meditative space, I think too. And that's sometimes what I think maybe really helps ultimately is coming into peace and alignment with self, but also with your higher power and with that energy. And it's hard to, when you're trying to heal, sometimes not have that anger or to feel out those feelings of anxiety or whatever that is. But ultimately, I think that has to turn more into love or peace and acceptance, and finding that ability to be at peace in that space again. Do you find that you're more at peace now that you're healthy again, or has that
Not
shifted?
necessarily. I think the challenges with the PTSD sometimes make it difficult. I'm hoping within the next I'm hoping that we get some clarity and things start moving in the right direction. And I think that's going to make a huge difference. A huge difference. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say about that right now. I can't elaborate on that at the
That's
moment.
okay. Yeah, that's okay. I will pray for that for you to get some clarity
Thank
around
you.
that. Yes, because it's not good when there's uncertainty or things, just when you do need that clarity. So I hope it finds you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I really appreciate your time here. And I feel like you've touched on so many good, again, different thoughts, and just, again, what a family unit can look like, the differences of what can happen to people. the length of time that this can take, the different symptoms and things and the ways that this can sort of manifest itself, some of the different types of treatment options that are available, and also what happens after, right? Like when you do get better and then you do have some PTSD or just some things that still need to be regulated to sort of come back into being a regular person. That's something actually that I wanted to touch on quickly now that I'm thinking about it again. That's something that I struggle with, was just once I was healthy, like being normal. And I don't know if that's maybe a little bit what your daughter's experiencing. Just
Yes, it is. It's like how to be normal again, you know? And
yeah,
like I said, again, the pandemic also complicated things,
yeah,
really complicated things about being normal again, you know? Not only did she lose a lot of her friends, you know, it was harder to meet new people then.
yes,
You
yes,
know, the whole
yeah,
socialization thing, it was just harder to meet people.
yes, it still is. And I sometimes think too, like that's one of the blessings of school, is that you put into situations where you have to socially be around people. Like it's a pool of other people your age, your peers. Maybe you don't like some of them, maybe you like some of them, you have some friends, right? But as a grown-up, you don't necessarily have those same opportunities that way either, that you're in such concentrated pools of your peers
Yeah.
to meet people. And so those opportunities are a little bit harder maybe sometimes to find, to even to go to meet them. School kind of forces that in a sense. And so she sort of lost out on a lot of that. But I'm also thinking about her from the perspective of what is really normal like? Because again, when you're sick for that long and you've gone through that much, and then we had that pandemic, like, how do you really know what normal is even?
Yeah, it's very confusing. I know that our doctor in Virginia would say you have to learn how to be healthy again. Like you have to get out of the sick mode and learn how to be healthy again too. I mean, he had to do it because he went through a lot himself. And that was, I think, huge why we stuck with him, because I think he had such a personal experience with it. And then his whole family got it too. It just seems like one person gets it, the whole family, I guess, because we're all, sometimes you do family activities and you're in the same area.
That's right. That's right. Same environment. They all, ticks are everywhere. And
Yeah.
so that's the thing. It's like usually the kids get it, then the parents get it because they're at the kids' sporting events or, however it goes. And yes. But I'm glad again that you had somebody and you have someone like that that can give you such good insight and support. But I will again think of her and pray for her to get a little bit like better balance of what normal feels like and what healthy is like, and the ability to find that, because that's sometimes what I struggle with, is like toning it down from the perspective of like having to save my life to just being an average person. I guess normal is probably not PC, but like average or healthy, like functioning.
Yeah, I know what, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I will enjoy continuing to watch your journey. It looked like you just got a nice time away and some time outside. And PTSD was like, oh God, good for her for being able to go outside again.
Oh, my daughter my daughter, she loves like animals. And like we were just at Lake George and she was tubing and fishing and doing all these things. We went to Fort Ticonderoga, and then she tried this year getting up on the water skis. She didn't quite make it, but my brother-in-law thinks next year she'll be up there. She was really good. She did the paddle boarding, kayaking. She loves it. She loves that. And I noticed that being in the outdoors really is very therapeutic for her. I don't know if it's for all people. And we went to Key West in June, and she got to swim with dolphins and she got to go snorkeling, and she was head on with a nurse shark. She wasn't afraid. The shark just looked at her and she looked at it and it swam away. And she just loves being in nature. She got the opportunity at the Butterfly Museum in Key West to go on a special tour that just happened to come about because somebody canceled, with the flamingos. And this one flamingo, what was it? Scarlet, just came. They were scarlet and red. Scarlet just clung to her and loved her because she just loves animals and children. My daughter that's her thing. She loves animals and children.
That's awesome. That's beautiful energy. That's
Yeah.
like pure source energy. That's awesome. So I'm glad that she has those experiences and she's able to enjoy herself and again, have some like joy and positive and
Yes,
fun,
some normal.
you know?
Yes.
Yeah. Not just all like heavy and sick and gloom and doom. So thank you again for sharing your guys' stories. I wish you the best. I will probably be releasing this in about a month just to give you
Okay,
that.
let me know like where I can see it. And
I
yeah,
will.
if anybody has any questions, you can give them my cell phone or my email address. I'm willing to talk. This is a topic very dear to my heart. I do admin a Lyme support group in New Jersey, and then I
Cool.
moderate one. And before the pandemic, we were meeting in person, then we started to do the Zoom meetings. But so this is a subject near and dear to my heart, probably for the rest of my life,
Yes,
because it's like a life sentence in a way, and it becomes a different lifestyle.
that's right. That's
Like
right.
I read labels when I go to the grocery store. I just don't go buy junk, I have to read all these labels, and like family doesn't understand. Like they know we're gluten-free, so they'll buy something gluten-free. Here, you can eat this. And then I look and it has all this junk in it, chemicals, maltodextrin, and all this garbage. I'm like, no, we don't eat that. We don't eat that.
I wish you were closer. We could hang out and have dinner together.
Where do you live? You said Pennsylvania?
Yeah. Reading.
Reading. Okay. My
Mhm.
husband was born in Pennsylvania. He was born in Pottsville.
Oh yeah, that's like an hour. Well, maybe 45 minutes north of me. I used to
Yeah.
sell photocopiers up in that area. So I'm very familiar with that region. It's
Well, if you're
beautiful up
ever
there, in
in
my
New York
opinion.
City, let me know.
Yeah, it's not that far. That would be really nice. Cause again, it's
We're
like,
going to be moving back to New Jersey, to Middletown, Homedale. It's easier to get into the city in New Jersey because they have two ferry lines,
okay.
and they have a very nice Academy bus service.
Cool.
And they also have a nice train. Here on Long Island, they just have the train, or you drive on the LIE, which is horrible. You can drive in too from New Jersey. It's not a problem. It's just that there are a lot more other options if you don't feel like driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Cause I mean, to the city, it's only like 2.5 hours for me anyways.
Yeah.
And I haven't been there since the pandemic. So we'll see. I'm overdue for a visit.
Yeah. We just started going back in a little bit, but we hadn't gone in a lot. We used to be there every week before the pandemic. She would go in 2-3 times a week. Then she started going by herself. She got to know the city. She felt very comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, hopefully, we can maybe slowly start getting back into it.
Yes.
She works with New York City Ballet, so we'd like to kind of go in and see her teachers in person.
Yeah, cool.
Which really does. Zoom is great. It's convenient. I wouldn't want to go in every day to the city, but getting out and going in and meeting in person does something.
That's right.
It's psychologically lifting. I know with the PT, it's psychologically lifting to just get out. And she did something on Tuesday with some other people. They did some little filming things and little things. And she was all day with this group, and I never heard her so happy. I could hear it in her voice. I know my own daughter, so she was so happy. She had so much fun.
Yes.
And it was nice to see people in person, to actually see a group working together in person again.
Yes. Yes. There is definitely something to be said for that energy exchange, just to be in proximity to other people's energies and bodies, and to see the sights, and just to get out, especially if it's a nice sunny day.
Yes.
Such a huge lift, right?
It is.
Yeah, good. Good. And I'm glad that activities are resuming again. That's what feels so nice. I'm a salesperson by day, and I can get back out to my customers and see them and go to visit again. And you do lose something on Zoom all the time.
Yes.
It's just when you actually can meet somebody, and by now it's like you just give them a hug because it's like, I've been talking to you for 3 years over this stupid computer. Like, I'm just so glad to see a person and flesh and blood. Yeah. Yeah. So we will look forward to that opportunity together then.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for allowing me to do this. It was really nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I agree.
I got an opportunity to tell her story. It's more her story than mine. I was more the caretaker. Even though I did have it, I was more the caretaker.
Yes. Well, but it impacts you tremendously too, as a family unit, as a caretaker, as the person who's sick, and just watching your own child, I imagine would be not a fun process to see them
No,
sick.
it was
and have to
almost
go through
worse.
that.
I would have wished I was the one that was that sick.
I could imagine. But gratefully you've gotten through hopefully the worst of it
The
ever.
worst of it.
Yep. And it's just onwards and upwards from here, and just fixing little minute adjustments here on out.
Yep.
So perfect. Well, have a really beautiful day. Thank you so
You
much.
too,
I
Anne.
appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you.
Yes. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.